Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming out this evening for our print media forum. My name is Todd Knizik. I'm the Executive Director of Art Services Initiative of Western New York. ASI is an organization that's been around just about a year now. We're charged with capacity building, collaboration, and advocacy for the cultural sector. And you can learn more about us at asiwny.org. Our little branding placement is inconspicuous there down front. I do want to announce before we get going that our next capacity building session is on November 1st as part of the Greater Buffalo Cultural Alliance General Meeting. It's going to be a training session on advocacy. We're bringing in the Director of State and Local Government Affairs from Americans for the Arts, and he's going to talk about the differences between advocacy, lobbying, and political activity, what you can and can't do as an employee or representative of a nonprofit, what you can and can't do as a private individual, even if you are employed at a nonprofit, and perhaps a little bit of what you should and shouldn't do, whether or not you can do it. So again, go to our website and you'll find out about the information for that. That'll be November 1st at the Mary Seton Room. With that, I'd like to start tonight's session on print media. I'd like to introduce first the panel. Starting at the far end to me here, Newell Nussbaumer, the editor and founder of Buffalo Rising, Elizabeth Licata, the editor of Buffalo Spree, Jeff Kelly, the editor of Art Voice, and Melinda Miller, the features editor at the Buffalo News. So first off, please welcome them. And thank you to you all for giving of your time this evening to hopefully get some additional opportunities and knowledge imparted here on our cultural folks. I'd like to start with something very basic, just deadlines for publication. And maybe if we want to start with you on this one, Melinda, and just work down the line.
Okay. I'm not used to having a microphone. I'm used to just talking and yelling at reporters in person. Very close. We have, at the Buffalo News, we have several different ways that we publish things about the arts. So we have several different deadlines, but in a nutshell, if you want coverage for things, the earlier the better. We have for Augusto, which comes out on Friday, the person who does the calendar for Augusto starts putting that together as she gets items that come in, and she finishes that up Monday or Tuesday of the week before publication. It says in Gusto she'd like things 2 weeks ahead. That really helps because we have to order space for how long the calendar is going to be, things like that. If you want coverage for an event that's coming up where we would have a reporter get a hold of somebody, set up an interview time, set up time for photos, and we want to get it in, that a month out is very good. That's not an official deadline. I'm just saying that that would really help as far as we schedule. I have nobody who's working in my department who isn't always busy and always booked. So to get consideration for something, even if we really, really like an idea, if everything is already all scheduled, it's harder to squeeze it in. So we have the Spotlight page 3 section is usually dedicated to the arts. That's someplace you can aim at. I direct those things to me. The Gusto stuff, the editor is Tony Roberto. You direct things to her. You should copy me on that because when Tony's not around, I do her job. And along with the individual writers who you probably know who cover pop music, classical, and theater. Colin Dubkowski for theater, Mary Coons Goldman for classical music and other things, and Jeff Myers for the local music scene. So I don't know. If I talk like this? Okay. So the deadlines for the Gusto stuff, they're in Gusto on page 3 and right at the top of the calendar for just basic news releases for events and things like that. And then the rest of it earlier.
I would just ask the panel to all get up on your microphones. Apparently we've got a nice reverb in the room, so thanks.
Will do. So we come out, Art Voice comes out on Thursdays, and the deadline for a basic sort of calendar listing in whichever of our calendars is appropriate to your event is the Friday before. But that's just for a basic listing. If you hope for more coverage than that, maybe a little event preview or even a feature, then we need it's probably a good idea to get us as much information and a snappy image a couple weeks ahead of time at least. If you send us something 6 weeks ahead of time, that's wonderful, and it will get in our calendar and we'll make a note of it, but you really ought to send us a reminder maybe 2 weeks before if you really hope for more extensive coverage, because we're just not that organized that we will remember something that you sent us 6 weeks ago. I hate to admit that, but it's true. And also, of course, there is no deadline if you just want us to, if you're desperately suddenly having an event on a Saturday and it's Thursday and you've missed the whole print cycle and you just want us to throw up something online, we'll do that. So.
Well, I guess I'm the editor of Buffalo Spree, and obviously we're a glossy magazine. Our production time is way in advance. We have a very long lead time. I guess the best way I can explain that is to tell you that we are working on our December issue now, and the deadline for the event calendar for that issue has passed. However, we also have a DIY online calendar. You can just enter the event in yourself. You don't have to even contact us. All we do is we glance down the events and make sure they're okay, and we just press OK, and it goes right up on our online calendar. So that's the good news. But with Buffalo Spree, we're happy to do more substantial previews of your arts events. In fact, we like doing it. We do a big theater preview every issue, and we do a lot of visual arts coverage and classical music and other music coverage. But I have, so what I do, our deadlines are all on our website under Contact Us, and what I give there is a query deadline if you want to have an article, and an event calendar deadline. And those are the two deadlines for the print magazine. It's all on the website. Basically, the event calendar deadline is a couple months out, and the query deadline is 3 months out.
Buffalo Rising's a little bit different than, because obviously we're not a print publication anymore, which means that the most effective way to get something on Buffalo Rising is to tell us when you would like it to be printed, and send it around the time that you would like to have it published online. Today, actually, I received a press release for Fight for Air Climb, which was a race to the top of the one HSBC Center, and that event doesn't take place until March. But they were looking for some pre-exposure for the event, and for us, that's like unheard of to publish something that far ahead of time. But since they were looking to build up some excitement and to get people to sign up early, I figured, okay, well, I'll post it today, because they didn't really say exactly when to publish it, but they alluded to that. Meanwhile, a couple other posts or press releases that I got today, I rewrote and published on the same day, and there were really no time constraints on that at all. And so, I mean, if I was going to be sending a press release to myself, I would probably send it 5 days before an event, knowing that we usually publish pretty quickly to the date when we actually receive the press release. And I mean, you want to keep it fresh in people's minds, and you don't want them to forget. So if you do it 2 weeks early, they may forget the people actually reading it. And if you do it too close to the event, it might be too late. People might already have their calendar filled.
Thank you. And there will be an opportunity for questions at the end of the panel. So if anyone has anything, we just ask you to hold it, and we'll take care of that toward the end. The next topic is press releases. And there's a couple aspects that I'd like you all to talk about, please. What format, what information would you like to see in a press release? What's essential? And then also any tips in writing a press release that you can give to people that might be a little bit more interesting or might give you what you need to say, hey, I want to put this in my paper, or I want to cover this event. And then sort of a subsection for those who it's applicable for, any other distinctions between a press release and a press advisory that you might want to offer, and the right timing and the right usage of those two, but mainly the press release. And Jeff, why don't we start with you?
Okay, let's see. I guess let's start at the beginning. The format I prefer for either an advisory or a release is an email, not an attachment, but rather something written into or cut and pasted into the body of an email. I'm not going to print out a PDF or a Word document, and I just as soon open up an email and see what it is you want to say. Prefer also not to receive faxes, and although I love the U.S. Post Office and I think we should all support it, I think considering your arts organizations, you ought to save your money and not send mail, because we are just so unaccustomed to opening mail nowadays that it may just go right into the recycling bin unopened. That's a dirty little secret. So really, no paper, as little paper as possible. An advisory, which I think suggests that you want us to show up to something. You have an event, you have an unveiling, you're introducing a new director or an artist. Should ideally be as concise as possible. We don't really want you to tell us more than sort of a couple of sentences that suggest why this might be a story. It'd be good in our case to get it a couple of days ahead of the event, because we are very, very thin-staffed, and if it's something we're excited about and we learn about it that morning or even just the night before, it may be too late to send one of our literally 2 reporters to it. So that's a media advisory, right? It's bare bones information, and really, most of the time, that's all we really want or need. A press release contains more information. It might contain the quotes that you put together from your principals. It might contain you may draw out a little bit of the narratives that you think are contained in whatever your event is, what the story is. And that's all right. For my newspaper, we don't use those narrative ideas as much as you might think. We're more interested in just knowing that you're doing this thing and discussing among ourselves whether we think this is a thing that we have room for and time for and interest in, and giving extra exposure. For us, the very long press release, the one that goes on for 2.5 pages, 3 pages, with paragraph after paragraph of quotes, although I think it's a useful document in a lot of ways, for some people it's not that useful for us. And the more sort of possible story ideas you cram into it, for us, at a certain point, we may fail to see the tree for the forest. We may not see the one story idea that we like. So concision for us is a good idea. If we need quotes, we're hardly ever going to take them from the sort of canned quotes in a press release. We're gonna call you and talk to you. What else did we need to know about the?
I think that's good. That
Okay.
covers it. Elizabeth.
Well, I'm with Jeff on having the press release inside the body of the email, rather especially not attached as a PDF, because those sometimes, depending on what kind of format they are, they just it's just an unnecessary, size added to the file. You're just trying to get information across, and you can do that right inside the email. In terms of advisories, if it's a press conference or an unveiling that a newspaper might cover the next day or the next week, obviously that's not something we can do. However, I do like to send our interns to those, and they can do something for our website, and that's really good experience for them. We always have interns working with us. In terms of what these, whether it's a release advisory, we only have 12 issues, and so we've got to make a decision is this something we want to devote space to, space that we could be using for something else? So we might really kind of want to get a sense of how special it is, how important this is. And that's, I mean, I think you all know how to send out press releases and so on. It's always, sometimes just if there's something that you really feel that you'd love to see us cover and you think ahead and you contact me in enough time, just a personal email to us explaining, like, we really would love to see this covered. The reason we do it's because this is something, we've never done this before and we think it's a great story for you or whatever. That's a good thing to do too. I work with a lot of curators and PR people around, and I found that certain places have really learned how to work with us very, very well. And certain places we're just never going to be able to cover their stuff because they just never get us anything on time. And I wish that could change.
It's funny. I believe I'm with both Jeff and Elizabeth. I had that as my copy and paste text right into the email. Don't make me open up a PDF because a lot of times I don't do it. And what's really incredible is that sometimes those PDFs or whatever the attachment is, they're not even labeled. And what's that?
Yes.
Yeah, they're not labeled, and the subject in the subject box in the email doesn't tell you what it is, and so all you get is a little PDF and for Buffalo Rising, and you can barely even tell what organization it's coming to. So sometimes or coming from. So sometimes it's some of the simplest and easiest things, and it's. And I think that's just for me. That's really interesting that everybody else is on this same.
And I would also add, often the emails come to us saying for Buffalo Rising, which really doesn't bother us that much, but it does make me feel a little bit small.
I also, as far as, since Buffalo Rising is heavy on imagery, whether it's renderings or photographs or anything along those lines, add properly sized images. Today I received for somebody who was trying to get me to post something on a skate plaza project. He sent me an image that was over 6,000 pixels, and I couldn't even. I have a Mac and I couldn't even drag it into my Photoshop. My Photoshop was just not taking it, and so basically it was really this was really important to me because I'm a big fan of the skate plaza, but. What I had to do is I finally had to take a screenshot of my email box and then take the screenshot, put that into Photoshop, and then basically, so I didn't have the photo or the image size that I would have liked to have had. We tend to make do with things as they come through, and just because ultimately, in order to communicate back and forth with somebody where you don't know where they are, what their full-time job is, any of those types of things, you just, you take what you can. But a lot of times, like if it wasn't the skate park or something that I'm really interested in, that might just not have ever happened. At the same time, the image has to be large enough to be post-worthy. If you send something that's 150 pixels, which happens all the time, there's just nothing that we can do with it, and I don't have the time to request, as I mentioned, those photos again. And I'm going to just stay on that photo direction. Headshots can be the worst photos on the planet. And there's just nothing you can really do with them. I've never seen, I don't think, a good headshot. Somebody could start a great business if they actually went out and took the subjects in question and took them to places of interest, especially places that maybe revolved around the subject matter that they are involved with. And that's it.
It's unanimous. Just put it in the email, don't send us the PDFs. They crash our email all the time too. Even at the Buffalo News, we have limits because there's a lot of people on the email system, and we're limited on that. So I think that's covered very well. For press advisories about events, We don't cover a whole lot of announcements because we generally will get a press release afterward explaining it, but some things we like to do. And if you're going to send a press advisory, a couple days ahead is good because, as I said, we don't have a whole lot of line of reporters standing there waiting to rush out for something that we just got that morning. There are things we do have to rush out to, but mostly we like to plan a little more. Send those to me. Send those to Tony Roberto. All of it, the news, all our email is our first initial and last name. Mine is really easy. I'm Miller, so conventional spelling. And also send them to citydesk@buffalonews.com because they've got several editors over there. They have more reporters who aren't as busy. And they also might be sending somebody out, even though it's not the features department, if it's something significant. We might do something in the city side when they appoint somebody like Todd to an organization we've been following, and then we'll follow up with something, more inclusive and a little bit longer in our department. So so go ahead. Don't worry about sending too many. I mean, don't spam the whole newsroom, but send it to a couple departments. That's fine. If you have organizational changes and you're pretty sure that, well, tomorrow's the taste section, so Melinda's not going to put it in there, go ahead and send it to the business department too. That editor is Grove Potter because you are businesses, and changes like that can also get into that department. It's not very predictable when we might have a little, space for a 4-inch story or a 6-inch story on a certain day because something came in short or something fell through. So go ahead and send it to those other departments too. So that's the advisories. And we generally, unless it's something way ahead and somebody's really curious about whether we're going to show up, we generally don't send back an email, yes, we'll be sending somebody, unless there's an important reason to do that. Also, if you have an announcement and you want to keep it a big secret and say, on Friday, we're going to make a special announcement and we're not going to tell you what it is, but we want you to have somebody here at 10 o'clock. Very likely we won't have somebody there at 10 o'clock because we're not that curious. It's just because they're making decisions every day on what to do with people, kind of a better hint about what's going to be announced, or even if it's like we're going to make an announcement about a new exhibit or an announcement about a new venue, or give us a hint instead of a big secret. For press releases, same thing. Put them in the email. Include all the basic information of the event. One common mistake, less with the bigger arts groups than with the garden club type people, but it still happens, is where it's October, I'm getting press releases about November events, but they're looking at the October calendar, so it'll say, Thursday the 18th, because that's, and when it's not, because that was October, so look at the right calendar. It's something that we check probably, 5 times a week anyway. Somebody that the day of the week and the event don't line up. And if you don't give us the day of the week, then we just, might put it in wrong, unless it's very odd that you're doing something on a Monday that looks like it should be on a Saturday, like an open house tour or something. And also, please, even if you're good friends with the people in your production and good friends with your artists, double check how they spell their names. Names that have capitals in the middle, Da Vinci, whether the parts are together. Everybody likes to see their name in the paper. They like to see it in the paper spelled correctly. I wind up being Melissa a lot of places. I have a sister Melissa, so it's not her. It's and check even the things that you might not think that you have to. I've got a guy here, and Knisik's the easy way to spell his name. It's the Todd, with only one D that we need CQ on. And so just check that because I don't always have the same people doing the same things. We have a lot of people who know it's Joanne, Folletta, 2 L's, 2 T's, but then sometimes I get somebody else doing things who's never heard of her. So don't assume that we all are going to get it right because we really want to get it right, but we need help on that.
Actually, you touched on something that I wanted to do as a follow-up for anyone on the panel. What are the most common mistakes that you see in press releases or pieces of information that you don't get that you need to get? Just for anyone on the panel.
Phone numbers, good phone numbers. A lot of places are only open, you only have somebody staffing your office at limited times because of the way the organization is, especially small ones. If you can just put, personal cell, we try not to bother people that way. We'll try the office phone first, but if you want us to reach you, we need to be able to reach you.
Sometimes with exhibitions, they don't have the, when the exhibition closes. I often see that. And we need to know that because the exhibition could very well close before our issue is even out. So that's kind of important. And I wanted to talk about, it's not a common mistake, but are you going to have another question about images?
No, go ahead on images.
Oh, okay. Because unlike Newell, we really need big images, and our biggest problem is getting images that are simply not big enough all the time. And I'll email back and say, this isn't big enough. Then they'll send me the same size images again. How about these? And no, because they're the same. So we really, we're about a 5 megabyte. What would be the pixels on that?
I mean, I would think that you guys would be like around 1,200 pixels is like really good.
Yeah.
Kind of gives you the ability to do anything you want with it.
Yeah.
1,200 pixels, 5 megabytes maybe. What we like to see is 300 DPI, but able to hold 300 DPI at 5 by 7 inches. Because we don't run anything without a picture. We're very photo heavy. We love using beautiful images, and I have to agree with Newell too, especially for the theater people. I know sometimes headshots are all you have, but we would rather run an image of that actor in a previous production, maybe the previous year or something. That's a much more exciting image. So that go with that instead. And also, one of the things that we get are the posters, the graphics that you guys do for your theater productions. We're always happy to use those. We like those. We don't even have to caption them because they say what they are. But the main problem we have is images being too small. And it's a good idea to learn to sign up and get accounts. They're free at You Send It. That's how I get all our images from the Albright Knox, and it works out great. It's just called You Send It, yousendit.com.
I would actually echo most of what Elizabeth said. We want huge images. It's a difference between what and how Newell is publishing and what we're doing, because we're print, and especially because you're glossy. We really need higher resolution images if possible. Whereas Newell is working from that computer and he's publishing to the web. Smaller is okay, as long as it's not too small. And for a variety of reasons, if you send us a great image, who knows? We might be like, hey, that's cool enough. It doesn't even matter if we're just writing 300 words on it. Maybe, you never know, we'll throw it on the cover. It happens with art exhibitions quite often. I would say probably 15 times a year lately. But that only happens if you send it to us large enough that we can do that. And that means it's got to be pretty big. 300 DPI is minimum size. Bigger is even better, and we can handle it because we're not doing our work from a laptop. We're doing it from our office with a big
If you
servers.
look at our magazine, you can see there's more images, there's more pictures here than there is type. And these are big. That one there with what's his name, Buffalo Eats dude. That's like 22 megabytes or something. So.
But unlike Elizabeth, Art Voice will not, if you send us your poster, that's great, we want to see it, but we will never use it in print because a poster in our paper looks a lot like an advertisement, and we like to keep it clear which is advertising and which is
Really,
not.
even those Irish classical ones, those are really artworks.
I know, they're so cool, but we
Those
don't
are
use them.
artworks.
I was waiting for the disagreements to start. That didn't take long.
Well, we don't run the posters either. We do like big pictures, but we also have our own photographers that we send out. And if you don't have a good photo, if you have a time when we can come and get a picture, that helps a lot. What I would prefer is having on the press release that you do have photos available if we want them, and we'll get a hold of you rather than having you send us things that we don't need. And when pictures are sent during regular work hours helps, because then again, it doesn't crash the email overnight. Picking up on what Elizabeth said about when shows close, we also don't always find out that if there even is a charge for some events, or what the tickets cost, or where people should get them, and if they need them ahead of time, or if they are just all at the door. So tickets, how much they cost, where to get them now, where to get them later. Anytime we have to start making calls on things, that takes away from time that you can spend, doing more interesting things with your copy when you're just having to just find out basic information, not even just checking it. So we appreciate that too.
At Buffalo Rising, we do like posters. We love publishing posters, but we also like it if we have both a photo and a poster, so that we can choose what we want to lead with, and then put the other one in the body of the post. My biggest pet peeve is when somebody sends us a press release and you've basically sent it on to one of your writers, and then later in the day they send the adjusted press release, and you're sitting there going like, well, it's just a real hassle, and it really it's unbelievable the amount of times that happens. So when you're about to hit that send button, literally go through and make sure it's the right press release, and make sure that, as they were saying, all the correct information is in there, because there's just, we publish pretty quickly, and a lot of times by the time we actually get that second press release, the correct one, we're already halfway through the writing an article.
I've got something actually about content of a press release that's actually going to make me sound like a real jerk. But I'm hopefully when I explain why you'll think I'm not such a jerk. Maybe you will. When you send out, maybe your event has started and we have not gotten around to covering it yet, and so you send out a secondary press release that says, "Look at the coverage we got in the Buffalo News and Buffalo Rising. Look at the write-up. Don't you think you should cover it?" And actually, what I think to myself is no. And not because I think, oh, well, obviously the Buffalo Rising and Buffalo News were more important to you. I think that, in fact, because we are an alternative newspaper and we have very limited space. And I think if you got coverage in the Buffalo News and or Buffalo Rising, thank God, good for you. Your event is covered, so we should turn to somebody who isn't getting coverage and use our precious space for that. It's not about jealousy. It's not about, well, if Buffalo Rising did it, then we're not going to. It's really just about deploying our resources and our dwindling editorial space as best we can among the many, many artistic efforts in this great region. There are so many people doing so many things. So please don't tell us hey, you should cover us because everybody else is. Because our reaction across the board, all of our editors, will be, oh, then I guess we don't have to. Just FYI.
Yeah, I can kind of go along with it. It depends on what it is. But if it's like a profile of someone that, where we could be doing someone else, and with, I just got my profile in the news or whatever, Art Voice, then I'll think, oh, good for you, you're all set. We'll move on to, Mr. X, who is equally deserving of coverage, but has not received it. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. So the next subject, so someone's successful. They send you the advisory or the release. They get you to their event, whether it be the opening of their show or an actual press conference. When you get there, what do you need to see? What are the elements that are going to make it newsworthy, that are going to help you do your job in covering that event or that press conference? And why don't we start with Elizabeth on this one?
I wouldn't be going to a press advisory. There's just no reason for me to go. I mean, unless to have a good time, if there's good, food and drink.
booze.
Somehow I knew that would be the answer.
I mean,
Serve wine.
to me, that question is like, would be great for a TV person, or someone who's going and writing it up at their paper the next day, but not for me.
Okay.
I had coffee and beer on mine as well, and honestly, I just don't go. I just don't have the time to go to that many. Every once in a while, when I do go to one, it's because there's just such a visual presence of whatever it is that you're covering. For example, the mural on Elmwood Avenue I covered this past Friday or Saturday, and I just knew that I had to be there to take an image of that myself, just because nobody really sent me anything, and it wasn't even a formal press release they sent out. But if I know that whatever it is just has an incredibly amazing visual impact, then I want to see it too. Other than that, there are interesting things like that normally I wouldn't go to the press conference for the waterfront music series, the Thursday at the Waterfront. But it's at Labatt Blue headquarters, which is kind of cool, and they have lots of beer, and that's kind of neat. So I will go to that. And I also do some part-time work for Olmsted Parks, and when we do have press releases or actually events, we do make it. We do always offer something to the media. Whether if it's an early morning press conference or something along those lines, you have a little coffee and you have a little Danish or a bagel or something along those lines, because most people who write, they live on coffee, and it always helps, because a lot of times those never go off according to plan as far as time goes, and you're sitting around for 45 minutes waiting for it to start. So it's nice to have a cup of coffee while you're waiting.
If we were going to cover these things, it would either be a city desk thing for the next day's paper. It could be something that went on our Gusto blog right away. If it was more food related, which a lot of theater stuff are food related, and Andrew Galarno covered it. It would go on, Hungry for More. Mary Kunz has her Buzz blog. Things like that, they're going out, they're coming back. If you're going to announce something, if you have on a piece of paper, doesn't have to be fancy printed, just something, the names of the people participating in your program, in case they are the people who say something interesting. I've been to, I don't go out so much anymore on these things, but I have been, and historically, to a number of events where people say, okay, and they don't even introduce the next person who's speaking because they assume everybody there recognizes that person, and sometimes they do and sometimes not. So let people know who it is they're looking at, if they have a title, what the correct title is, and I'll have that written down for the reporters, all the reporters there, so that they are able to then take that information back and they can devote their time rather than finding out who was that guy, find out more about what that guy actually said. So just, a one-page thing summing up who was there and what the gist of the thing was. It isn't because they aren't paying attention. It just solves some other problems so that they can get a better story out of it. The better the story, the more likely it's going to see print or, get space somewhere.
Like Elizabeth, our people, we don't go to a lot of press conferences. We do go to some. And as Newell says, we will be most attracted to those that you're unveiling something, really. You're showing us something physical that is interesting. And we are, as I said before, in terms of content of press releases, we seldom use the quotes that are in the press release, which generally reflect the statements read at a podium. When we go there to listen to that and be edified by what is said at the podium, But what we really want is an opportunity not so much to ask questions of people at the podium, but to have sort of little sidebar conversations with them. So a good press conference for us, one that is fruitful, is one where the statements at the podium are relatively brief, and maybe there's time to just sort of like, you know, mingle and talk to folks afterward. That's ideal, and it's tricky to create that atmosphere. You almost want to make it sort of event-like, and I know that can be difficult to do. It can be beyond, for a small organization, it can be beyond the budget, both time and financial. But I feel like there are people who pull that off, who make it feel like you are there just to meet folks. It's more of a meet and greet than it is a sort of thing where one person is standing at a podium and talking to an audience. In addition, yes, some sort of one sheet that says who everybody is and how their names are spelled, so that the reporter can check his notes and make sure that he's titling people correctly is pretty critical.
Thanks. All of you have an online component to what you publish, and so are there any differences or any separate tips in terms of the online aspect versus the traditional print aspect? And for Newell, of course, that's exclusively what you do, so why don't we start with you and then work through.
Unlike Jeff, we actually will use canned quotes if we're going to be basically just getting a story up because we think it's interesting and the quotes are sufficient. So don't disregard sending the quotes along to us. I do agree with them. If there's a bigger story, chances are you're going to want to go out and get some unique quotes. It also doesn't hurt to occasionally, if you're really trying to choose the publication that you're trying to get into, to actually say, here is a quote that is was specifically written for your publication. That's kind of unusual and doesn't happen very often, but it does happen. And sometimes, some of the people that are sending me press releases, I will say, hey, can you send us an original quote? And they'll remember that from time to the next time they send it, they'll say, here's an original quote. That does not happen a lot, but when it does happen, it's actually really nice. And if you think about it, it's not that hard to come up with quotes, and it's that kind of leads me to what I was going to say next, which was a lot of times the quotes come from the same people over and over, even if it's different events. You'll have this, the high-profile people that are constantly sending or being quoted, which is nice, but try to get a few different quotes, and even some quotes from people that you might not necessarily expect would be quotable. A lot of times there's different angles from different people who are responsible for whatever it is that you're covering, and just try to mix it up with those people. I find that fascinating when you get a quote from somebody that you normally wouldn't have expected. As far as online goes, obviously I've talked a lot about what you really want to do to send us information online, but links are just like super important. Anything that you have that is, as far as social media goes, if you've got Twitter, if you've got a Facebook page, keep all that, really make sure that we get all of that. At the same time, if it's a business or something along those lines, at the end, you put what the business is, put an address in, put an address in, put a phone number, and keep that all together. Because a lot of times what we'll do, instead of having to go and search throughout whatever has been sent, we'll just do a copy and paste and put that right in there. And it's the little things like that just makes my job a lot easier, especially when you don't have a lot of time during the day, and this is not my full-time job. So it's always nice to just kind of keep the different information in different places that you can just kind of use and find very easily.
When if you look at our website, on the right you'll see running down all the stuff that comes from the magazine that we publish online as well over the course of the month. On the left side, you see all our original website content, blogs, videos, whatever. In terms of original content on the website, what we usually do is try to put, like my idea is to put things on there that I wish we could have covered in the magazine, we're unable to. So we're going to do something with them online. This was the case with the Preservation Plus conference, which I couldn't preview, didn't know about it in time, or the solar tour that just happened. Another thing we do is concerts, a lot of music stuff. We, don't know enough about in time, so we have a chance to like preview a really interesting concert like 2 days before or whatever. And often, I'll be honest, our interns, this is a really good place for them to get some experience, although one of our online editor, Krista, or assistant editor, Julia, will go over their copy. So because they are interns and they are learning, they do call to get quotes because that's part of the kind of thing that they need to know how to do when they get jobs. So, or we might use the quotes, and it depends. It depends on what kind of time there is, how much time someone has to do something. It's really what's going on that day. We don't publish a ton of original stuff, basically, because we're very busy putting the magazine together. But it happens, and I think we're gradually doing more and more of it. So that's it.
Our website is such a mess. I wish there was something you all could do to help us with it. But frankly, God bless you, I don't think it's possible. It is true, actually, if we are doing something that is going to be web only, we may very well use canned quotes from your press release. We may just quickly throw something up because we know it deserves coverage and we didn't have room or time to do something in print. So that's a case where we might use that sort of longer press release and be interested in whatever narrative you have sort of singled out in your press release. And links, as Newell says, that's great for us. And always, if you want something posted online, give us some image so that it looks nice online. That's about all I can think of, besides complete redesign of our website and refocusing of our priorities, which 6 years into my latest tenure at ArtVoice does not seem to be happening.
Well, if anybody's looked at the Buffalo News website in the last couple of months, watch out for those redesigns. They can be a little tricky. But we are getting it straightened out, and we are on a timetable to be charging for use of our website. So I want to let people know a few things that are out there. We have the Gusto blog, that things that, as with Buffalo Rising and other in Art Voices, if you miss our print deadline, we can put things on the blog if it's something particularly interesting, if it's just a matter of something that we'll catch up on later and all, we don't just use it for, and now here's something that came out too late for Gusto. But we can get it in the calendars anyway that also run online. The Gusto blog, Hungry for More blog, Buzz blog, the reporters can be more casual there. It doesn't mean that they don't have to check the information, but it's a good place if you have something that you want people to know that you're planning to do or that might be coming up. Things that you would want to generate some buzz about that we don't feel have enough meat to justify a story that I'm going to use, limited inside print space for, but things like plans to put something in 710 Main, things like trying to get a national playwright to come here, working on getting a certain artist or different things that might be in the works, that might be in the formative stage. Those kinds of things, if you let our people know about those, they could put it on the blog for buzz, to build a little buzz about it, not just the buzz blog, and or they can kind of tuck it away for something. Also, if you're an arts group that is having a particular problem or dealing with an issue, or perhaps has government that's trying to throw its weight around in a way that might not seem completely, you know, like the right thing to do as far as you're concerned. This is a place where we might be able to talk about that, those kinds of things. We also use our online for videos before the theater season. Colin Debkowski, the theater writer, talked to a lot of people who had shows for Curtain Up, and we did videos. They came into our studio in the office. It's not a big studio, it's a room. But they came in and talked about what they had coming for their whole season. We did a thing about 7 particular actors that he liked, and they each did little video bits from shows that they were in or things that they liked doing, and we could put those online so people actually see the actors in action. So there's a lot of stuff that we're trying to do, and we are training everybody to be able to do more on their own, and with our photo staff and our online staff. So we love sound, we love moving pictures, and we like having a running conversation with people on our blogs too.
And before we get to questions, let's just conclude the panel with any additional tips that you might have for increasing people's coverage opportunities. Anyone?
I don't know, it's probably taboo for a lot of media, but a lot of times somebody will contact one of my writers, and I think that's actually pretty cool. And they do that because they know one of my writers already has either covered a story that organization has. So there's an affiliation there, and my writer will actually contact me and say, hey, do you mind if I write about this event or this business or something along those lines? And 99.9% of the time I'll be like, yes, fantastic, good. I'm glad, cultivate those relationships with the writers, because if the writer's interested in writing about that subject matter, and the event or whatever it is they're covering is happy with their coverage, there's a great relationship there, and it makes my job a lot easier. And then there was one other, there's one more pet peeve. It's unbelievable when somebody will actually send you an email and say, hey, when are you going to get our post up? When are you going to cover what we're doing, when we actually covered it like 2 days ago? And so if, be a little bit responsible, and if you're really interested in that media source, at least follow what they're writing and what they're doing, because it's really annoying when you know that they're not even following it, but they want you to cover what they're doing. So it kind of tells you, like, well, you're not that interested, obviously, and you don't think that it's that important that it goes up there, or else they would have known that it already ran.
Oh, Newell, I have writers doing that. Let's write about this. Oh, but that was in last month. I guess you didn't see. Okay. No, I think it's good that writers should be out there looking for stories. I don't see why it would be taboo. If a writer comes to me with, I was talking to so-and-so, they told me something they're doing, it sounded really interesting, I'm going to listen to that. And, I'm always just, I think, if we just get the press releases that go to everyone else at the same time that they send them to everyone else, it's always going to be too late for us to do something. I think that's the main thing that I have to say. If you want it to be in the print edition, which I think you should want it to be there, I think that's where your audience is. I know a lot of people look at our website, our numbers are good, but I think in terms of the people that you want to be sitting in your chairs in your theater or coming to your exhibition, you want our print edition, and then you're going to want to try to take the care. I mean, I know it's a pain, but try to get things to us in a timely fashion so that we can actually do something with them. And if you really feel strongly that you've got a great story and that we should spend a little more time and space on it, then just contact me and tell me why.
I would echo, yeah, Absolutely. You need to absolutely engage our writers, engage our editors. Art Voice is like this weird Rube Goldberg machine of people who seem to have little connection to each other, but are connected in strange ways, and everyone plays many different functions in this machine. And you can engage it in the most sort of basic way. You can send a press release to editorial@artvoice.com, and the machine will kick your marble down the chutes and pneumatic tubes to get where it needs to be. Or you can find out the best way to engage the machine for your use. Our arts writers, for example, they're freelancers, and I don't pay them enough that I can compel them to be interested in something. I seldom assign them a story. They come and tell me, I think I'd like to cover this. I think I'd like to cover that. Our theater section is run entirely by an editor-at-large, Tony Chase. I don't tell Tony what to cover. God knows, I would never tell Tony what to cover. And so you can call me at the office and talk to me about your production of Skin of Our Teeth, and I will be interested, and I'll have a pleasant conversation with you, but it will have no bearing at all on whether it's covered, and I will also be happy in that conversation to tell you how to engage the machine, who you should talk to. If you have a musical performance, then you want to send things to calendar@artvoice.com. Everybody should send things to the calendar first. But maybe you also want to send things to a guy named Corey. And all of our email addresses are just our first names. Corey arranges all the sort of like short little box coverage in the calendar, the little picture boxes with 200-word write-ups, for example. You could engage our music editor, Donnie Kutzbach, but he's an editor-at-large who we hardly ever hear from. So that's confusing. I apologize. And I would tell you all this on the phone if you asked me how best to get coverage. And I guess I'm telling it to you now. But it's one of the things about being a quirky small operation is there is no sort of standard mode of operation, and the best thing to do is give us a call and familiarize yourself with who you should talk to for what you do, I guess. And meet our writers. Our writers come to things. They go to a lot of things. Find them and say hi, and they'll start writing about you.
For us, we have the stuff that we do that's formula. We have the stuff that we do that's, very predictable. That's we want people to know where to find things, to know what listings to have. But for me, when I decide that I'm going to pull something out and put it on a Sunday page 3 or a Saturday cover, okay, sometimes this isn't as well planned as you might want to think it is, and I'll definitely say there's no hidden agendas. We just like to get the paper out every day, and sometimes the conspiracy theories are pretty interesting, and we have no time for conspiracies. But I like, for the bigger play, I like different. I like people who take chances. I like something that that our readers will be not just be interested in, but also possibly intrigued by. If you have somebody coming to do something special, where this is, one chance to see somebody that they might not otherwise have a chance to be around, we like that kind of thing. So make sure that that's included in whatever you're doing. Yeah, well, I think we all we love to have writers come to us with all these good ideas rather than the top-down thing. We're not this is the brain trust. We're all the big idea machine up here. But no, and we all use, a number of the same people are freelancing for us, very talented people with different areas of expertise, and we love having them all work for us. And I don't think any of them are probably paid as much as we would like to give them. But that's just the main thing, to get it to us in time. There's one organization, not a nonprofit here, and I'm sure there's nobody here from it, but I'm not going to name it anyway, that every Monday will send me something about what they're going to do on Wednesday. And I just well, Augusta was Friday, out there was Sunday, it would be so much better if they sent it to me a week earlier, because it's always something that was scheduled. And just that timeliness. We love trying to cover everybody. We love trying to give everyone a turn. We go a lot of places. I have some people that you have to kind of pull them back a little bit and say, I know we want to make time to do this, but we also have to cover the thing at the arena that's going to have 20,000 people over there because they want to know a little bit about it. But we do our best to give people a very good sense of this tremendous range of artistic possibilities and endeavors that are going on. Our audience for the news is probably, it's a little bit bigger, but it's more scattered. We're reaching out into the suburbs to let people know why they want to come into the theater in the city. We're telling them about the theaters in their communities. We want to let people know about all these treasures, the old ones and these new things that are coming up. And if you get a hold of us and nothing happens once, please don't stop trying, because we'll get there eventually.
I want to thank the panel for all of your comments so far. Now we want to hear. Great. And we did want to leave a little bit of time for questions. The only thing I'll ask for anyone who has a question to wait for the microphone. We are recording this session tonight. It'll be up on the ASI website as soon as we possibly can. We want to thank Squeaky Wheel for being so kind as to record for us. So does anyone have any questions for the panel? Oh, we got a couple. All right. Wherever Elizabeth goes, that'll be the question.
I want to thank you guys all for being here. This is really helpful. I guess
Who are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Who am I? Dave Ruck?
That was a joke.
Oh, I knew. I guess one thing I haven't heard, and I wonder what your thoughts are on, I think a common sort of principle that we used to hear in terms of getting media coverage is to kind of try to tie your event to something that's of current interest or that's currently trending. The local foods movement, for instance, or if there's any way to sort of tie what you're doing into a bigger sort of popular trend, it would be more likely to get coverage. Just wonder if any of you could comment on that.
No, just do what you do. For me anyway, just tell us what you're doing. Probably. I mean, I guess every once in a while, we do have some special issues that we do each year, and if there's something that can be tied to that, if there's some way you can tie, if it happens to be concurrent with, a gift guide or, a summer guide or something like that, and the publication date of that, and it seems, then maybe you want to tailor the pitch to that if that works for your event. But you don't want to recast your event into something it's not, just to try to pique our interest, at least not in our case.
Yeah, I feel that programming should reflect your unique mission of your institution. Having worked at a museum, myself, it just shows how, like every arts institution here, represented here, offers something different. You each have your own mission. That's what we want to know about. That's what we want to cover.
I've never actually heard the thing about tying it to a trending, but I can see where it might get out there, because if things are trending and we're covering them, it might look like there's a tie-in, but that isn't necessarily the case.
Okay, great. Anyone else?
I know it was touched upon a little bit, but maybe some tips about secondary releases or re-releases. What are the sort of do's and don'ts of what to include in those, and what kind of information warrants a second release for your organizations?
Well, I mentioned earlier that there's a couple different ways you could take it. If you're sending out your first one is different than your second one, that's a whole another can of worms. and that can cause a major problem for online media that might be publishing something rather quickly and to turn it around a little bit faster. But I don't think that there's any problem. I don't know what you guys think, but it's always nice maybe to get a couple of press releases, but not. It's really funny. Sometimes it really works, and sometimes it's like, stop sending me press releases.
There's like a sweet spot, right?
There's a sweet spot.
You might really need to if it's a really multifaceted event. You've got a lot of content, and you don't want to throw it all into. And there might be a series of. It really depends on what it is. If the actual programming that you have calls for that, which is varies.
And a lot of times it's an ongoing series, so you might have covered it all once already. You might want to cover it again if it's a summer-long type of series or something along those lines, or if it's something that just is, yes, if it's just it's that sweet spot. It's really hard to describe. But sometimes, like when we first see something, it might not be of interest, and then you get it again, and you're like, oh, you know what? That actually is interesting. So
Yeah, my story fell through. I
Yeah,
need something
That's right,
else.
exactly. And look, it comes with a great big picture.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's,
no, go ahead.
every once in a while, I possibly am not the only one at this table who has given story better play because of the really nice picture that came with it. And if you get a picture that you didn't have originally and you want to send it along, the one thing about a second release that picks up on what Newell said is if it's a reminder rather than a change from the original content, if you could just point out that this is a reminder rather than somebody, my calendar person or me, looking at it saying, why am I getting this again? Did something change? So if we know whether there's a change or not in there, that would help.
And I'm going to add one thing, and I almost can't believe I'm going to say this, but a reminder phone call is also welcome, is so long as you aren't hurt if we're non-committal and even sort of quick to get off the phone. It is actually very helpful to get a call saying, hey, I don't know if you remember seeing this press release that we sent last week, but the event's in 2 days, and I just thought I'd call and see if you're interested. And I may not be able to commit to anything, but you've put it back to top of mind. Maybe I forgot to send it along to the appropriate writer, and I will do so, if you call and ask, and leave a message, do whatever,
Great, thanks.
To me, email is the same thing as phone calls, the same exact thing. I check my email all the time, and I much prefer it to phone.
We like the
why don't-
email. I just want to say we like the email initially, but and I hate hearing from PR people in Los Angeles trying to sell me dog sweaters or something or get us to write about them. But local people, as you said, as long as you understand if we're busy, if you want to check after you've sent something.
Thanks. Why don't we go to someone toward the back there?
Hi, I'm Rick Williams from Casa de Arte, right around the corner. Thank you all very much for your time. I just have a practical question distinguishing event calendar type announcements from a press release. I know in Gusto and in Art Voice, for example, we're limited as to what you're going to put in there. And I usually, but my general rule of thumb is I'll put a little more in than I know is going to end up in there, figuring you'll edit it out. I often say something about free parking, and to me that's kind of important, but I mean, I lived in Washington, D.C. for 30 years, and there's no parking in Washington, maybe that's why, but I usually stick that in there. But anyway, there's the event calendar, and then there's the press release. In both cases, I try to find that delicate balance and not get ridiculous about it, but if you really want to explain what you're trying to do, it is going to take a couple of paragraphs. I mean, am I correct in assuming that as long as you don't go on and on and on, you guys are going to edit it out?
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess, I mean, I'm the one who said earlier that kind of suggested that less is more, but you're right. At some point, less is less. I mean, a couple of few paragraphs is fine, and so that we know what it is that you're trying to tell us that you're doing. You know, we do want to know something, and not beyond just the dates, for sure.
Art Voice and the news, we both have, I brought a Gusto here, these little items up front, and then, you know, they're short, but they're not real short. I mean, they tell people they often have a photo, and then in the calendar section, we have, you know, these boxes that are a little bit expanded on it to, you know, break up the type essentially and give us an excuse for a picture. Those things, we call them standalones. If we have enough information to build one of those, with or without a quick phone call, that's great. That's great. We're not like bored.
Let's go to this gentleman next over here, and then we'll go to Connie.
How you doing? My name is Carl McGowan. I'm from the For Realist movement. We're an urban music company. We're getting more involved in youth movements and original music. I have kind of a question and a comment. First of all, there's like, for me and the way we do things, there's a three-step process in getting notification. And it's first to notify, then to have coverage, and then to have reports of the event after it happens. How do we make sure within your organizations, without pushing and seeming like we're being aggressive, to make sure that there's intercommunication between departments, as for example a calendar that's notifying an event that's coming up, and then to make sure that, you know, someone will actually follow up to the event, and then the report after, maybe in Augusta or something that covers it. How do we make sure that, you know, there's intercommunication between your departments without seeming like we're being pushy?
Well, with Art Voice, there are like literally 4 people who do all of that. So like, we talk to each other. I mean, there's no different departments, right? You know, but one thing I will, just to address one part of your question, this may be particular to us, we don't do postmortems. We only write about something that people can still go to. So if you've got an ongoing event, we'll review it. But if it's a one-off, we're only going to preview it.
For us, you're going to know if we're going to review it because somebody will call you about it, and you know, unless it's a free event like an art walk or something, but somebody will call and let you know to make sure we have tickets set up and that the times are right and everything. So there had, at one point, when there was a lot more room and everything, been a sense at the paper that if we're going to do a big preview of something, then we have to review it to let people know if they lived up to their preview. We've gotten away from that because my feeling is for any ongoing group, you'd rather have any kind of coverage than have us say, well, we can't get a reviewer, so we're not going to preview it. And it's interesting, there's different groups, they'd rather have the reviews because that's used for things like grants and other ways to get gigs and stuff. And some people would rather have the preview because for them, getting the people in the door that initial time is more important. So we try to balance our needs and, you know, the interest of our readers, so that all comes first. And then, you know, figure out what's best for the group too.
From our side of it, you know, paper trails are very important. We artists, we get outside of Buffalo, you don't have to do that. You actually just a review or a preview of what you're going to actually having reviews from different organizations in your media, your cities, your local town, whatever. It's a very important thing.
Right.
Once again, I think that the way to really combat that is to become familiar with the writers. My writers, they go to things all the time, and I don't have a lot of writers, but the ones that I do have, you know, they have their interests, and if you can pique their interest and get to know them, and find, whether you're finding them at other events or just talking to other people who might know them, social media once again is a great way to contact people. But if they're interested in something and you can reach out to them and basically let them know that we'd really love to have you come to this event or show or whatever it is we're doing, you know, you don't have to tell them, you don't have to cover it. Obviously they don't have to, but if you make that known, we'd just like to have you come and see it And I think that really alludes that, that if they would like to cover it, they're welcome to do so.
Let's go to Connie, right over here. Connie, raise your hand so Elizabeth knows. There you go.
Hi, my name is Connie Caldwell, and I'm with the Buffalo and Erie County Historical Society. I'm not going to stand. I'm freezing. But the one question, this is what I struggle with when I send out releases. I have multiple lists. Some calendar, some family magazine, some, this, that. And I think maybe Elizabeth and Melinda, I know I include you on things that I think, do they really need this? But sometimes I do because I think, well, maybe you want to be in the know. Do you, how do you discern these press releases you get? I know that, like, coming from the Buffalo History Museum, maybe you'll look at it before saying, if I'm going to promote my husband's, new quintet or something like that, possibly. But like Elizabeth, today I sent an advisory. I know you can't make it, but oftentimes I think, well, maybe you want to just scan it or know what's going on. Is this something that...
Just go ahead and send me everything. The only thing I would say, Connie, is that when you really think that you've got something that you think we should cover, that our readers will want, that is important for you to have us cover, and you think we'd like to cover it, then you just simply have to shoot me an email. But don't bother me taking me. You wouldn't believe the amount. I'm sure I'm speaking for everyone. I get so much email every day. It does not matter. Just, it's easy to delete what I don't need.
Right, no one's going to get mad at you because we get one more email.
It's
It's better to know than not to know.
Yeah, there's nothing that could make my email load any more bearable.
Well, and also one other question I had about, I do have like Don Asman, for example, on my list, thinking, well, you never know, maybe this will pique his interest. But I don't think I've ever gotten a story ever that way with any columnist or with anyone. And yet, to try to call Jeff Kelly, sorry to point you out, but I remember trying to call you over an event and I couldn't get past Bud Quigley. And we're like friends to get to you. So I thought, I wonder if he's going like talking to Kelly and he's saying, no, I don't want to talk to her.
I'm probably just not in the office. No, literally, I'm often not, if it's not Tuesday or Wednesday, so this is sort of the catch-22. Again, this is part of having a small staff and being on a weekly schedule. If it's not Tuesday or Wednesday, it's very likely that I'm not in the office because in addition to being an editor, I have to act as a reporter. So I'm running around a lot. If it is Tuesday or Wednesday, I'm probably pulling my hair out because I've got a deadline in like 24 hours. And I may not be at my desk, I may be running around. And this is another, so this is another thing where phone calls are great and welcome. I may not always return them. The phone call you give me may be the reminder I need to send your press release to where I think it's who will be interested in it or who would write about it if there were. But please don't be hurt, Connie, if I don't get back.
We have time for one or two
could
more.
I just answer
please.
that one?
No, please, go
She
ahead.
asked
Sorry.
I look at all my emails that come from local organizations. I delete almost all my emails that come from national people wondering if we're doing a gift guide this year. And that is like the bulk of them. So I'm happy to get all your emails. And if the subject line indicates that you're a local group, that really helps. My phone number is on the top of the Life and Arts under my name and email. That's my direct line. I don't have anybody else answering my phone. And I also don't have caller ID, so I'm not screening my calls. If I'm at my desk, I pretty much answer my phone. So if you have a quick question, you can always call us.
There was a woman waving frantically there in the scarf, Elizabeth, if you want to get to her. There you go.
Hi, I really appreciate all the information. It has been really great. I deal more with images from Casa de Arte, and I just want to clarify what I heard. And I don't know, we should send you the images, 300 DPIs, 6 by 7 by the rule of thumb. Is that what I Okay? Or it was different for every one of
It's
you?
different.
It's different for everybody. That was me.
Okay.
For Elizabeth and I think you want to send them, frankly, as large as you can. To the largest image, the best images you have. And that dramatically, for us especially, and probably for all of us, that dramatically increases the inclusion of a photograph or some sort of image, dramatically increases your chance of sort of expanded coverage.
Great.
We
But
like
th-
the.
but there are way too small and way too
Yeah.
large images. I mean, it's crazy some of the things that you really see. Like my example from earlier with the skate plaza. I mean, it was like over 6,000 pixels. I mean, the thing was just so gigantic. It was just ridiculous.
But 300 dpi and 5x7 goes through the email very easy. Or could be sent through. Send it?
You send it is really good for big images. Even with good bandwidth like we have, it can be, if there's like 3, 4, 5, 6 megabyte images, it can get kind of slow. It's going to be slow for us, it's going to be slow for you. So, but they have these wonderful services now, and I'm only thinking of YouSendIt, but I know there's like 3 others that allow you to just simply upload images. You upload them, I take them,